Political corruption in 2023 is more dangerous than at any point in history.
Mr. Reagan.
We know Joe Biden is corrupt. We've seen the evidence. I read you a chapter out of Peter Schweizer's book from 2018. We know he's corrupt. We know he's corrupt forever. They're finally getting some hard evidence to suggest this so that hopefully the American people will see it. Even some mainstream media outlets have been covering this a little bit, and we're disgusted by it. Obviously, we can't believe that somebody was elected president who is so unbelievably corrupt. It's, that's how much they hate Donald Trump. That's how much they want to keep control of the country. We often talk about the two-tiered justice system, which I consider three-tiered, right? Because you've got the Democrat elites, you've got us regular people who get some modicum of justice, and then you've got people like Donald Trump who are the enemy of the Democrat elites, the deep state, and they're really at the bottom. January 6th protesters, that's the worst. We live in an authoritarian third world style government now. That's the government that we have. It's very disturbing. We talk about the irony of how Donald Trump's prosecution, or what you might call persecution, political persecution for a non-crime is ridiculous, especially when you consider that Joe Biden hasn't even been investigated for real crimes. Hunter Biden gets a little slap on the wrist. We talk about all that stuff, but there is a bigger problem here. There's a problem that we are not talking about enough. And the problem is that political corruption in 2023 is far more dangerous than at any point in history. Throughout history, politicians have been corrupt. Everybody talks about that. Everybody says politicians are horrible. They're all going to hell. This kind of joke has always been around, but it's never been this dangerous. And I'm talking about civilization level destruction here. I'll explain why in one moment. First, I have to tell you something.
Reign in wealth like King Charles with a gold IRA from Noble Gold Investments. Just as King Charles's magnificent gold crown symbolizes wealth and power, a gold IRA can fortify your own financial kingdom. Imagine the confidence that comes from a retirement backed by a tangible, proven asset, gold. An asset that's not at the mercy of unpredictable market swings. A crown may not be included, but isn't a future free of financial stress a worthy throne? Like royalty, enjoy the luxury of choice. Gold, silver, platinum, or palladium, the realm is yours to command. Fend off concerns about economic downturns and let your wealth thrive with the timeless security of precious metals. This month, the first solid 1/4 ounce gold standard bullion coin ever issued with Charles III's image can be yours with your own qualifying IRA or 401k rollover of $50,000 or higher. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold Investments. Call Noble Gold at 877-646-5347 to get started today, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com.
All right, so let's get into why political corruption is so destructive in 2023. It's because corruption is a different game today than what it used to be. It used to be that a corrupt politician in America just, made the country maybe not optimal, right? That is, they were skimming some taxes, somehow getting some kickbacks, giving government contracts, not to the best people or the cheapest companies, but to their friends. Whatever, little schemes like that where politicians could get rich or at least live a pretty comfortable lifestyle, far more than they could acquire just with the money they were getting from their job. And that was always annoying. People always hated that. And occasionally people would get caught, but not very often. But regardless of how annoying that was or how terrible that was, at least doing that stuff was never going to burn down the country. Today, we're no longer talking about a few $100,000 grifted by a corrupt politician over his 40 years in government or whatever. Sure, some politicians are still doing that, but we've got much bigger problems. Joe Biden didn't just get a few $100,000 in kickbacks over 40 years. He started taking tens of millions of dollars. And we don't actually know the full extent of this. Nancy Pelosi, tens of millions of dollars. The Clintons, tens of millions of dollars. And you might say, well, so what? Does the amount really change things? It's still a harmless grift. Well, yeah, the amount alone isn't that concerning, although it does make these crimes a little bit more serious. No, the problem is that what a criminal is willing to do for $50,000 is nothing compared to what a criminal is willing to do for $50 million. And so that begs the question, what are these politicians doing for this money? Well, look, we here at the Mr. Reagan channel acknowledge to our YouTube overlords that there's no such thing as a corrupt Democrat politician in America. They don't exist. That's not possible, right? They're all perfect, law-abiding government servants. And, they're just nice people. But let's just imagine for a moment, hypothetically, that if there were some corrupt politicians in Washington, D.C., what might they be motivated by here in 2023? Well, we just had a pandemic, and that pandemic was the result of a virus that was being studied in a government-funded overseas lab and probably had some gain-of-function changes made to it. What those changes are, specifically, we have no idea, but it's possible that this was a government-altered virus that caused mass hysteria and shut down our whole economy. And many industries and many local governments created rules and legislation that effectively required vaccination. And because of this, many pharmaceutical executives got very, very rich. And if you were a corrupt politician that helped with these mandates, you might have been tempted to implement such legislation to mandate the virus because of a bribe or because of a kickback. We pharmaceutical companies get rich. You, corrupt politician, you also get rich. And let's imagine in the case of these corrupt politicians that certainly don't exist in real life, that this all worked flawlessly. No one got caught, everybody got rich. And so what does this do to the corrupt politician? What does it do to their mind? It incentivizes them. It's what's called a perverse incentive. Maybe they think, I made a lot of money on that vaccine mandate, but maybe I should have asked for more. I sure can't wait for the next pandemic. And so corrupt government officials and corrupt politicians who have benefited from a pandemic from a government-funded lab, well, they have become incentivized to profit off of another future pandemic. That is not a good thing. A corrupt politician is now actually incentivized to create pandemics. That's pretty insane. Another potential issue, right? For decades, politicians have understood that war is very profitable. To the corrupt politician, this is an opportunity, another perverse incentive. The more tanks that America orders, the more tax dollars we spend, and the more kickbacks a corrupt politician can demand from government contracts. This has been known since Eisenhower first warned us about the military-industrial complex.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. Now, on Friday noon, I am to become a private citizen. I am proud to do so. I look forward to it. Thank you, and good night.
And these hypothetical corrupt politicians that I'm imagining, they wouldn't just get rich from American wars, but any war that American tax dollars go to support, either directly or in the form of military equipment or services. All of these things supply means by which the corrupt politician can get rich. Finally, like the pandemic, there are several types of other crises that can be exploited in order to steal American tax dollars and manipulate legislation for the ultimate benefit of corrupt politicians, including fake crises. Climate hysteria is one such example. Now, some people think that the climate crisis is entirely fake. Others think that there's some kind of a problem there, but that it's been exaggerated. In any case, politicians have been grifting off of this hysteria for decades now. They've realized that the more fear they can inspire in the American voter, the more tax dollars they can get away with spending, and the more useless legislation they can pass to facilitate their grifts. If you want to know a bit more about that, watch my video on BlackRock. And not only are these brainwashed Democrat voters okay with this climate spending, they're cheering it on. They're demanding it. Spend our tax dollars, waste our money. So look, as I've said, there are no corrupt Democrats in D.C. We all know that. Pelosi, Schiff, Schumer, Biden, Clinton, Obama, they're all good folks.
They're not bad folks.
But, maybe you disagree with that. Maybe you, for whatever reason, think that perhaps there are corrupt politicians in America. Maybe you think that some of these politicians are, in fact, Democrats. In any case, I've presented to you here a few ideas for your consideration, in order for you to perhaps better materialize your thoughts on the possibility of corruption in Washington, D.C. Because if there are corrupt politicians in D.C., they have incentivized themselves to create the illusion of crises. And worse still, they've incentivized themselves to create actual crises. Well, that's it for me. Remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just that they've incentivized themselves to destroy America. Good night.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man.